Welcome to the Contrarians and to another episode of Fix This Album. Tonight's album, Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion, number 1 and number 2. Can you combine these to make these a better album? Let's see. Welcome to the Contrarians and to yet another episode in our series this month, Fix This Album. The album we're trying to fix today is Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. So the whole goal here, Kevin and I were talking prior, in fact, West Coast Dave and Davey, we were talking about it before, is we're going to take what we've all, I haven't done it. You know my feelings on Guns N' Roses, God knows. Anyway, We're taking both of those and combining into a record that would just make it so much better. We're fixing this record. So we do want to hear from you down below in the chat. Can you fix this record? What would you do if you took 1 and 2, got rid of the riffraff, and made one great record? All right, so let's get started. I am going to throw it over to Kevin T first, and then we'll go West Coast Dave, and then David A, and then we'll just go around. Kevin, can you fix this record?
Well, I'm certainly going to try, but I guess first of all, I should show my love for the album. I got this gigantic box set a couple of years ago.
Oh, good Lord Almighty!
Wow,
that's got my goodness.
Yeah, it's got the 2 albums, and it has 2 live shows that are both 2 double LPs as well, and a bunch of memorabilia and stuff like that. And then I have original LPs, and so I'm kind of a Guns N' Roses fan.
Well, that's good. But when this album came out, I mean, was there anything really about it when you first heard it that you went, not quite as good? Or did you just hear it and you were totally jazzed about it? Just curious how everybody felt about it when it came out.
Well, I was a pretty young guy, and
so I
got a lot of my music. Yeah, I got a lot of my music from my older brother, and he was a fan. Mm-hmm. And I just remember there was a lot of stuff that I liked. I didn't care so much that there was a little bit of filler. Mm-hmm. There was enough to latch onto. So I didn't really, I was young enough to where I wasn't waiting so long for this follow-up. I had enough enjoyment with Appetite and Lies as well. So I wasn't like I was waiting for this thing to come out for years like some people. So, and there was enough, like I said, that I liked that I didn't care. So all right. Yeah, I think the band has never had an issue coming up with material, and maybe that's been their problem. You saw it with especially Axl himself, with Chinese Democracy. He just waited years on that thing, sifting through material and re-recording things and bringing in new members. And I think that's where we start to see this happen. When they released Appetite, they had already been playing those songs for years in the clubs. And some of these songs actually existed around the time Appetite came out. They just weren't released. So I think they had kind of a wealth of material, and they just didn't want to see any of it not released or hang on to it.
Right.
And like I said, I don't think they had any problem coming up with new material, so they weren't afraid to release it. And from everything I've read, they had to fight the record company to release it this way, 2 double albums. To say it wasn't a success is kind of, they're both 7 times platinum. So it's hard to say that, that they're not a success. But I do see, listening to it again after all these years, I mean, you could have made one of the all-time great double albums just combining them. And so that's kind of the approach I took.
All right. Well, we're going to see what Kevin comes up with, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So I guess for me, right off the bat, I just let's cut out the filler, the stuff that I don't like. So I take away the 2 cover songs right away, Live and Let Die and Knocking on Heaven's Door. I never really cared for those much anyways. They do make them their own, which I appreciate, but Knocking on Heaven's Door had been around for a while by the time they released the studio version. And Live and Let Die is just not my favorite.
Those
And then
I
also,
don't want to interrupt, but they still
yeah,
play
oh yeah,
those all the time on FM rock radio.
sure.
They probably play those more than anything else off the record. It might be the only things they play off of it.
Which is kind of a shame because there's some great deep tracks here. Um, I also took out the second version of Don't Cry with the alternate lyrics. That's just pure filler
Yeah,
for
why'd they
me.
do that? I don't get that.
Yeah. And then My World, which is about a minute and a half of just studio fiddling around that they threw on the end of the album. It really makes Use Your Illusion 2, those two tracks finish the album. It really makes if you listen to them in succession, it makes two just go out in a whimper. And I never really liked that. So those are the four I absolutely don't like, and I took those out. And then from there, I'm trying to make an album here, which I think is like Exile on Main Street, but on steroids. And so I even sequenced it in the way I think would work best, and tried to keep it about 20 minutes per side. If we were doing two LPs, a true double album. So although I like the openers on both 1 and 2, with Right Next Door to Hell and Civil War, I started out with You Could Be Mine. I just think that is one of the great songs on both albums, and it's a real banger. And then going into my next song, I should say I also like all the Izzy stuff, and so I kept all of that. So the second song is Dust and Bones. That's really kind of what Izzy brought to the band, this kind of new version of the Stones, but kind of amped up a little bit. And then I kept The Garden and The Garden of Eden. I liked how they were sequenced in the original albums, and The Garden has Alice Cooper on the chorus, which is kind of cool. Garden of Eden is a fast 2.5-minute rocker. And then You Ain't the First closes out my side A. And that's another Izzy song, which is acoustic. And I thought it was important to include some of the acoustic stuff because that's what, the Lies EP kind of brought out in them. And they always had that in their bag, but it never showed up on Appetite. And they, listening to a lot of interviews with Slash, they composed a lot of the songs on acoustic. So I thought it was important to include some of the acoustic numbers. And then side B, I want to start out with another banger, Perfect Crime, which is less than 2.5 minutes long. Super fast. It's got that fast Axl kind of almost rap type vocal, but in his unique style. Pretty Tied Up is the next one. I think that's another Izzy written one. He doesn't sing it, but he wrote it. Double Talk and Jive is another Izzy one. It's got this kind of Stonesy, kind of almost jangly sound, but more distorted. And then Coma, finishing out the second side of what I would call the first LP. And so, yeah, so you got 21 minutes on the first side, 20 minutes on the second side, 20.5 minutes. Side C, I opened up, I almost kept it. Well, it's exactly like Use Your Illusion 2 starts out. Civil War, 14 Years, and Yesterdays. I think Civil War is a great song. I think they released that as a single.
Yeah, they still play that around here.
That was out well before the album came out, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of the only ones that Steven Adler actually played on or recorded.
The only one.
Yep. And then 14 Years, another Izzy song, great song. And then Yesterdays is kind of a unique one. It's a really beautiful song. Although Axl, I would have preferred more of his mid-range voice, I guess, less it's got this kind of croaking croon on it. But it still works. I like it. And then I finish out the whole thing with, and this would be the last song on side C. I kind of, Don't Cry, November Rain, and Estranged were kind of this trilogy of music videos at the time. They kind of have a through line. And so I ended my side C with Don't Cry, and then side D is November Rain and Estranged. And all the sides come in around that 18 to 20 minute range, and works. I don't think there's an ounce of filler on this. I think if they had that material early on when they're in the writing process, instead of keep developing, you could have released this. Maybe the tour doesn't last as long. They toured like for 2 years straight, probably burnt out the band too. And then the record companies wanted a new album, and they throw together some covers, and that was kind of the end of the original band. So trying to play a little bit of revisionist history here with trying to make a tighter album, get it released maybe quicker. Maybe it doesn't have as quite the toll on the band, and but it's still. I'm glad they released it the way they did. I don't have any big issues with it. I still listen to the albums, so yeah, that's what I got.
All right, cool, excellent, Kevin, excellent work. All right, let's keep this dog moving. Let's throw it over to West Coast Dave. Dave, what you got?
All right, cool. So this album came out September 17th, 1991. I was 21 years old, and I was definitely waiting for this to come out, so it was a big deal. And I would say I liked some songs and then some others not so much. Listening back to this, Axl is just so angry on so much of it, Like he's literally got, he's got so many songs where he's screaming about some bitch. It's like, calm down, bro,
Take a chill pill, man.
Yeah, you need to meet some different women or something. You really got a problem. And then he's got a whole song about how much he wants to like kick people's ass, like Bob Guccione Jr. And it's just like, those aren't good lyrics, man. I don't know. So like that song, Get in the Ring, obviously that's not on mine. But anyway, I do think that they should have held back some of the songs. I think people would have paid a lot more attention. I've noticed that not just this time, but when other people put out really long, super long albums or 2 double albums, a lot of it just gets lost in the shuffle,
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would have been more effective really for them to release it a little bit at a time instead of just this whole mess of songs. Because like I said, I just think things get overlooked. So Use Your Illusion 1 is an hour and 16 minutes long, and Use Your Illusion 2 is an hour and 16 minutes long. I thought that was a little odd. So the total time is 2 hours and 32 minutes if you're going to listen to both of them back to back. And that's
which is how I always do it.
Yeah. It was kind of it took me a few days to really get through it all when I was listening to everything and trying to figure out which songs I was going to keep. To fix this album, I would say to get Steven Adler back for sure. Matt Sorum just never really carried the band the way that Adler did. And the first album it's got more swing. Everybody always says that, and I kind of agree with that. And I just kind of look at Matt Sorum as kind of a plotter, instead of a swinger, if that makes any sense. So Mike Klink produced and engineered this album, and when you look up the credits, there are 14 other engineers listed also on most of the songs. And so that kind of just points to this whole like huge, overblown, massive, sprawling recording project, with all these people involved. And then I noticed that there were some other writers involved too. There's this guy, Jerry Isbell. And I was like, who is that? Oh, it's Izzy Stradlin. I didn't know that before, so I just thought I'd bring that up.
That's his real name?
And yeah, it's Jerry Isbell. And there's a famous country singer named something Isbell too, but I almost thought it was him for a second. But another thing that I thought was kind of interesting is that your favorite Shannon Hoon from Blind Melon, he actually sings lead vocals on
Excellent.
Don't Cry.
We love Shannon's work.
I noticed that you brought him up a lot, and he sings on that song. And he's actually credited with lead vocals. I guess his voice is kind of loud in the mix. And so just by comparison, Appetite for Destruction is 54 minutes. So I tried to make a single album. Okay. So what I did is I started with, not an album, more like a CD, because I looked at this as part of the CD era. And so I started out with Right Next Door to Hell. That's my first song, because, that's banging. And then I followed that up with Civil War. I always really liked that song. The wah playing, the guitar playing is really good in it. I'm not too sure if I like the whole introduction from Cool Hand Luke. And some of the other voices that are on the album, it sounds to me kind of like they're trying to be like Pink Floyd. The Wall or Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
And they're trying to add all these extra voices and people talking and stuff in there. And I just think it usually detracts. It doesn't really add much.
Phone messages.
Yeah, stuff like that. And just some of the stuff in Axl, some of his spoken word stuff, he just spits words out so fast. It's crazy. And some of that could have been cleaned up a little bit, maybe. But anyway, I got Right Next Door to Hell, going into Civil War, and then I have Yesterdays. I'm a big fan of that song. I think it's really good. And then I have Pretty Tied Up. So the album's really moving along, at this point. So now it's time for Don't Cry. We'll slow it down for a moment, and that was a big hit. And that was also a song from the Appetite days. And I do think that the writing was a little bit tighter on the Appetite days than it was. So that would kind of be like the first side, I guess. And then I put Breakdown on next, which I think is really good. And then You Could Be Mine to bring it back up, another banger. And then I went with Estranged. A lot of people think that's Guns N' Roses' best song, period. And I've always really liked that one. And when this album first came out, that really stood out to me a lot. So I wanted to make sure that was on here. That did not leave any room for November Rain, though. I think November Rain's a little overlong. That box set that you have, Kevin, there's another version of it where it just goes on and on and on and on and on and on. That song's actually, they really cut it down a lot for what it ended up being. Now, I love the guitar solo in November Rain. It's an all-time classic. And then, hey, he throws his guitar off the cliff, too, in the video. That's really cool also. But I just save it for the next album or something is what I'm saying. And then my last song is Coma. I think a lot of Guns N' Roses fans, that might be another one that's up there for like best song on this album. So Right Next Door to Hell, Civil War, Yesterdays, Pretty Tied Up, Don't Cry, Breakdown, You Could Be Mine, Estranged, and Coma. 9 songs, clocks in at 56 minutes. So, and there were a lot of good songs that I liked that I left off, and there are a lot of songs I don't like very much that I left off also. There's still so much left to go. It would almost be kind of interesting to make another single, shorter album out of the pieces that I left off or something, but that's what I came up with, and maybe I'll stick it in the comments when the video posts in case somebody wants to try listening to it in that order.
But no November Rain.
No, I left it off. It just, with Estranged, to me, it was either Estranged or November Rain. There's just not room for them both on a single album or a single
you could do
CD.
an edit of November Rain. How long is November Rain?
Maybe.
9 minutes and 9 minutes.
Come on, you could you could cut that down to 3 minutes and 5 seconds and make a good solid track out of it. No? Wishful thinking?
I still think that's too much. You're cutting it down a little too much there, Grant.
Okay. Well, I would cut it way down even further.
By the way, I love Axl screeching and screaming and all that kind of stuff. Ooh. It's just when he gets, it's when he's too angry all the time that I get bored. Kind of like Nirvana. It's like when you're depressed and screaming about how crappy life is on every single song, it just gets old. Save it for a couple songs, Well,
I kind of look at Nirvana. I like the pop tunes because a lot of that Nirvana stuff, I'm just saying, there's a lot of great pop songs on there.
Nevermind came out on the same day, I believe. There's
a lot of noise on Nevermind. I much prefer In Utero if I'm listening to Nirvana. There's a lot of noise on the first album. You'd have a song that's just noise. Then you have a nice little pop ditty, Good pop songs on there, I'm just saying. But there's a lot of just... People will disagree with that, but...
Didn't mean to change the subject, but a lot of people compare those albums because they came out at the same time. And then a lot of people say, whoa, Nevermind just buried Use Your Illusion, which I think is over-exaggerating.
I just remember when that was big. I don't remember Nevermind overpowering it at all. It seemed to exist on its own, They were two different, genres.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Nirvana really couldn't stand Guns N' Roses, and I think Guns N'
I
Roses
know.
kind of liked Nirvana, and the feeling wasn't exactly mutual there.
No, I don't think Cobain dug him very much.
No, he didn't like the misogyny.
Mhm. All right. Well, I think you've made a better album, Dave. So we're going to
Oh.
throw it over, I guess. You feel you did? I have no idea. Yeah, sounds great, Dave. Totally going with that. All right, cool. Let's throw it over to David A.
All
Or
right.
Southeast Coast Dave.
Yeah. South. I'm on the west.
Southwest Coast Dave.
Yeah,
I'm never going to
I'm
remember
the other
that.
Dave, just lower. Yeah. Just a little bit
That's
lower.
right. All right.
All right.
Very
So,
complicated.
yeah. So my relationship with Guns N' Roses is interesting because as somebody, and I probably mention it every other time I'm on here, is timeline, right? So I'm kind of getting into music 86, 87. So most of the bands that I'm falling in love with are either sort of deep in their career or really deep in their career. So I'm getting in midstream somewhere, which is cool, but you're kind of jumping on the train and you got to do the backwards thing and go through all the catalog, which is actually a very cool way to get interested in a band. But Guns N' Roses was one of the first bands that I felt like I got in the ground floor, right? Like I was right in that, whatever, 16, 17, and we got Appetite for Destruction at the record store on cassette before it blew up. And so you felt sort of connected, like, hey, I'm on the ground floor of this one, because everything else was, had been around forever and a day, right? And so, you're like getting involved with Kiss, and at the Crazy Nights era, you feel like you're getting in the back of the train. The train's been going a while, right? So felt connected because you felt like it was yours in a way that, hey, it was finally something that we knew first, or we felt like we had a little bit of a relationship with before it became all things to all people, right? Mm-hmm. So always had a certain affinity and a connection to the band, and of course to Appetite. And as becoming a bass player, I always loved Duff, right? And his playing and his tone and the bass lines that he came up with, considering how thrashed those guys were on Appetite, are just amazing. I mean, so
his bass tone is really good on the album, on Use Your Illusion, for sure.
The Alien Kruger bass tone on there, and then the all like the counter melodies and the things that he's doing for a guy that's, for all of them that are pretty whacked out at the time, is pretty remarkable. How, he's not just banging a root note for 55 minutes, right? Which is pretty amazing, the stuff that they were able to accomplish given the circumstances. But so I've always have a lot of affinity for what he brings to the table and what brings to the band. I think they all bring a really special element, but for me, Duff in particular. So, I kind of looked at this similar to Dave, in that I took this sort of as trying to make one solid record out of this. When the Illusions came out, it was just a lot, I think, for me. And so most of the material I liked, there was a lot of the material I liked a lot. And then there was stuff that it was hard for me to have a relationship with a lot of it, because it was took so long to get through. And there was so much happening, in my life at that time, college and all this stuff. And, to have I went and got them the day they came out and all that, but I didn't absorb them in the way that I would, I think, if it was a single album where the CD sits in my car for a month and I just absorb it, right? And you kind of know it backwards and forwards. I never really did that. It was always sort of piecemeal. And, there were certain songs that really stood out for me, and they make my album. And there are other ones that, in revisiting this for this podcast, I'm like, that's pretty awesome, and that fits real good here. And so, and then there's, of course, the filler stuff that we all feel like maybe there's a few songs that probably, could have been left for later, or a B-side or something, or whatever. So for me, I started with, I looked at, like Dave, I looked at it as sort of a CD era. Mine's a little bit longer than Dave. Mine goes a little bit, just over an hour. It's 12 songs. I still thought of it in terms of sides, and I put some thought into sequencing, but not really for vinyl, because I thought this is CD era, so I didn't really think of vinyl. If it was vinyl, this would have to be double. It's just too many songs to shove onto a single vinyl. But I kind of thinking sides in terms of cassette, but also CD era, really doesn't have sides. But it's kind of, in terms of sequencing, I did think slightly in terms of sides if it's a cassette, right? So my leadoff track is Civil War. I've always liked. I felt like I always liked two better than one, but when I put this together unintentionally, I got 5 songs from one and 5 songs from the other. And then, of course, just to be a contrarian, I borrowed 2 songs from elsewhere, which we'll get to because that was in the description. You could borrow from elsewhere.
Yep.
So I borrowed from elsewhere in a couple spots just to make it interesting. But I lead off with Civil War. I thought it's a great lead off track. I've always enjoyed it. And it kind of is the bridge because it's the last song that Adler's on. So there's the bridge. Adler's right out of the gate. You get sort of where he's still playing on it. Second track is You Could Be Mine. I love that track. I think Dove's bass line is that bass comes in, it's rumbling, and I think that's brilliant. So You Could Be Mine is one of my favorite tracks on the Illusions. After You Could Be Mine, I have Don't Cry, and it's our usual for the time period ballad in the third spot in the first side. And here's where I go. I'm going to get the hate mail, but on after Don't Cry, I put Shadow of Your Love. So I think this era, if they had taken that track and recorded it properly here, I would have liked that. So it's Civil War, You Could Be Mine, Don't Cry. Then I have them doing Shadow of Your Love, which was the Appetite Left Over, which I think is a great track. And if they're doing it when they're firing at all cylinders right now and do it, I thought it could be really cool right here. So I put Shadow of Your Love there. And then I finished this first side with Garden of Eden. So coming out of that, I've got Garden of Eden, which is just a thumper, And then on the end of side one, it's the epic 9-minute November Rain. So they goes out of that, and then we do end of side one with the big epic November Rain. Flip the tape over, and Right Next Door to Hell, right out of the gate, another thumper. Let's kick this off, and then I kind of bring it down a little bit for a couple of tracks with Yesterdays, and then 14 Years. Let Izzy sing. I think that's cool about this time. He needs to let him sing, and then that needs to be on here. And then here's where I go weird again. Kind of in that fourth spot on the second side of this tape, I put Chinese Democracy. And it's weird because I really like that song. I don't know what, specifically all the stuff that, is that Chinese Democracy has that kind of dates back. I know there's riffs and different ideas that date back to the earlier period, but there's part of me that feels like if that song with the riff and a lot of the soloing that goes on throughout, even over the vocal, I could, if the Use Your Illusion lineup was doing that, it could be really cool. So I put Chinese Democracy there because I would love to hear it recorded and proper in this era with this band, with Slash and Duff and those guys and Izzy doing that, right? And then I end the side with, after Chinese Democracy, Perfect Crime, which is just a 2-minute machine gun. And then on the end of side two, I do the other epic, so Strange. So we end the album with the other 9-minute epic with Strange. So side one, if it's a cassette, Civil War, You Could Be Mine, Don't Cry, Shadow of Your Love, Garden of Eden, November Rain, Flip It Over, Right Next Door to Hell, Yesterdays, 14 Years, Chinese Democracy, Perfect Crime, and Estranged. So it goes just about an hour. So probably too long for one album, but good solid CD.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I noticed we had a lot of similar favorites.
Yeah, I see a lot of similar tracks between everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody likes Yesterdays. I was a little kind of wondering about that one, but that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Anybody else have anything to add? That's kind of a quick overview, gentlemen. I don't have anything to
burn through it unless Grant wants to tell us how much.
Not a fan. I don't know. I've never even listened to this record. I just know what they played on the radio.
So I saw them relatively recently.
And how was it?
Maybe a few years ago. Slash was just absolutely amazing. I mean, plus I loved it because I play guitar and they had the camera right on his fingers, literally, so it was like that on the giant screen. So you could see exactly what he was doing. And I just love that. Axl was a bit pitchy, dog. Axl's a studio singer, he can still nail it, but not all the time.
So is Vince. Vince is a studio singer.
And when he whistled during Patience and Civil War, it was way, way off. It was like, whoops, might work on that a little.
Well,
But he had his moments, and
uh-huh.
then he had his moments of grandeur, and then he messed some stuff up. I'm gonna admit it. But he's getting old. It's hard to sing like he does. He's got a huge range. I give Axel a lot of leeway. I know he's got a lot of haters out there, but
I love him.
At least he's out there singing live, right? And he's not just out
Right.
there mailing it in with a track, and it sounds great. But if I want perfect, I could listen to the record, right?
and I thought he was good at Back to the Beginning. Everybody makes fun of me for saying that.
I
I thought
agree.
he
I
sounded
agree.
I thought he sounded really good. And people are saying like, "Oh, Axel's so terrible, Axel's so terrible." And I think Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, he nailed it except the timing was off. I figured that his in-ear monitor, he couldn't
Probably.
figure out like exactly where the band was, but his pitch was right there and it sounded killer. I felt so bad for him kind of because it was like that close to just being perfect on that song,
Mhm.
I thought, my wife and I watched it after it happened, and we both said, "Wow, this is great. Axel looks great. He sounds great. Yeah, he's a little bit off on that one song, but." And then online, it was just everybody was just hating all over it, and I was like, "Well, I disagree. I think Axel did a really good job at that show." So
I mean,
Again,
go ahead.
I'm back to the beginning again. It shows how ambitious that band is. I think they did 4 Sabbath covers.
yeah, they did
And
Junior's Eyes. That was great.
yeah, Never Say Die and It's All Right. I think they played part of it, but
Yeah, just
yeah,
a
I
little
mean,
bit.
I think no other band did more than 2. So
I also
yeah,
think Chinese Democracy is a good album. I like that a lot, and I
same.
like it a lot more than I guess general opinion or whatever it is, where people just say it's terrible. I don't think it's terrible.
I don't
I
think it's
think,
terrible either. I've heard that. We
yeah,
did a show on that.
yeah.
I thought
It,
Chinese Democracy wasn't too bad at all, actually.
you know what? I think Axel was just a little obsessed with being left behind by people like Nine Inch Nails. And so he didn't want to be considered irrelevant anymore. And so he just took so long to the perfectionist side of him came out and just went crazy. I think he just kind of went a little crazy in the
But
studio.
there's decent stuff in there. The record sounds good. The production's good.
Yeah, it's a good album.
And he tends to just sing more on it than scream.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I think it's underrated. I own it. Obviously, I like it. I think that album, perhaps anything that has that much, it's just because of the delays and Axel's sort of eccentricities, as you will, and kind of without having any guardrails. He doesn't have a band. He doesn't have Slash to answer to or anybody with any power. So he's the only voice, and he's such a perfectionist. I can just see this thing dragging on and kind of kind of this just picking it apart and just and never being able to say it's ready, and the hype around it took so long that once it finally comes out, I'm not sure anything would have lived up to the hype, because it just is that hype for this. It was this mysterious thing, and it took years and years and years, and finally it comes out. He could have put out Appetite for Destruction and it probably would have been underwhelming, because there was too much of expectation. I think by that point, it's really hard to meet an artificial standard.
Yeah, I don't remember, but how did that sell? I remember seeing it at Best Buy.
I think it's gold.
Did it go
You
gold?
know what? They put it out at Best Buy exclusively.
Okay,
yeah.
maybe
It
that's
was
why I
a
remember it.
deal. Yeah. Where you had to go to Best Buy to go pick it up.
Yeah, it was kind of at the height of you know, illegal downloads on the internet too.
Yeah.
So a physical
Mhm.
copy was not selling back then, really.
Yeah.
So
Kind of too bad. Well, I guess they kind of missed the boat. But I don't have a problem with that record. When we looked at it, I was actually kind of surprised because it just seemed
and this
seemed very mature, and it seemed very creative. And I don't know. I was really kind of surprised.
yeah. I haven't spent a lot of time with the few singles they've released in the last couple of years too, but I have listened to them. And I don't mind. It's worth probably a second listen.
What
And-
was that
and-
single that came out like a year ago, year and a half? I love that.
The
And
General.
I think that
is
was
the
from
song?
Chinese Democracy Sessions. What was the name of that track? Oh,
I think there's one
shit.
called The General. There's one called Perhaps.
There's one called Hard School, right?
Hard School, yeah.
I don't know, but I dug it. I went, wow, now I like that.
Yeah, and they're re-recording it with Duff and Slash, and yeah, that's all leftovers from Chinese Democracy.
Yeah, and that's a leftover. I'm going, jeez.
Yeah.
I dug it.
There's something out there for you, Grant.
There
Maybe
is.
you'll get
I'll
into
give them
Guns N'
props. I will give Guns N' Roses props.
Roses.
But I love that song. I thought, wow, this sounds fresh. And this is an old track. And it sounded great, hooky, memorable. I just can't remember the name, but I remember the track. And they were playing it for a while here on FM Rock Radio. And I would always listen to it and go, wow, this is good.
So maybe their next album. That'll be the one for you.
I don't know. It almost seems like Axl runs better by himself almost. Because I don't think Slash or anybody was on that record. It was just one of those unreleased
The other
tracks
single.
that they knew. Yeah.
Yeah, the other single was Absurd. So
Absurd. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah.
yeah.
I think those were all decent. See,
So
there you go.
four singles from the new incarnation of Guns N' Roses. So maybe we'll see an album someday.
Maybe. But I will say this, though I'm not a fan, I do have to applaud them because, for really riding the coattails off that debut album after all these years and still selling out and touring and as popular as they are. Hey, I applaud them. Not many of those legacy bands can do it like that with such a small catalog. So, hey, I might not dig them, but I can appreciate what they're doing and good for them, keeping the rock and roll going.
Yeah, they have enough volume though. You forget about Lies, which is they say it's an EP. It's really an LP length.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Illusions are both double LPs.
Yeah, you could count this as 4 albums. I mean, they have kind of a decent catalog if you count this as
I guess
4
you're
albums,
right. Yeah, you're right.
And Chinese Democracy is a double album.
Do they
too,
play
so.
anything off of that?
Yeah, they played a couple songs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I had tickets. A buddy of mine had tickets for it and asked me if I wanted to go, and I went. I declined. He took somebody else. I couldn't sit through that.
You know what? When they played Sweet Child of Mine, it was a lot of fun. I gotta say, the song nobody needs to hear again, but to hear just everybody in the crowd light up and sing along and everything, it was good times, man. It was really good. Paradise City was sweet. Just those songs you've heard a million times when everybody's really into it.
I mean,
it was fun.
But
I got
think
my
if
tickets for real cheap though.
I mean, if they could get Steven Adler back in the band, because he's functional, he's not doing drugs, he can drum.
He wants to. I'm pretty sure he wants to be.
Why
back
does
in the
Axl
band.
hate him so much? I read that book. His book. Okay, this is a tangent. What time is it? I've read both Slash's book and Steven Adler's book, and I highly recommend.
I read Slash's book, not Steven Adler's.
Highly recommend both of them.
Yeah.
Steven Adler, absolutely fascinating. The fact that he's alive.
Alan Niven, their manager, has a brand new book out too, and he says Izzy Guns N' Roses was Izzy's band.
Yeah.
I wish
And
Izzy
then
was in
Axl-
it though.
Axl was the one creating all the problems. Everybody knows that though.
I know. I've always been kind of curious of those Izzy solo albums though, because I remember when those came out, but I never picked them up. And you guys have, you guys have talked highly of Izzy, his singing and his songs and stuff. What have you guys heard those records? What
No,
was
I
the
remember
first
the
one?
first one.
Like,
First
came
one's
out
really
like
good.
94, 92 or
Yeah.
something. Oh,
Yeah, I haven't
crap.
followed. I haven't kept up
I
at
only
all.
2 of them. I've got the original one, the first one. It was at the Two Hounds, and I got
Yes.
the one that came after that. So there were 2, and I know he's put out other ones after that weren't on major label, but I haven't revisited them in a long time. I remember not hating them, but the fact that I haven't revisited them tells me
That might not be a good sign. I always understood they
don't
were kind
know.
of stonesy though.
it doesn't
Yeah.
seem. I mean, my CD collection is like maybe your guys is obscene, so it's hard. If I just because I don't revisit something doesn't mean I don't like it. It just means
Right.
in that mess of stuff that I haven't revisited. You know, it's not like I just had 5 CDs I revisited before, but when there's that many, it's like stuff just gets in, like, you find it. That's what these are cool, because then I revisit, like, the Illusion albums. Like, I haven't revisited these things in their entirety in so long. Super cool. Not because I don't like them, but just because it's just so much.
Oh, I get it.
You know,
I totally get it.
But yeah, I
just
think it definitely is definitely some of the parts, right? I mean, you know, obviously any of their solo stuff isn't going to live up to what they accomplished, you know, together. There's something about those 5 guys, right? In time and place, and there's the element that they all bring that created, you know, that first record, which, you know, a lot of people like look at it as they're kind of a one record band, but you know, as I think we have sort of proved today. I mean, looking at just the Illusions, there's a lot of hit songs on there, and you know, I think somebody said 7 times platinum. That's not a failure. You know, that's most bands would like 7 times platinum would be a massive hit, you know.
Yeah.
So November Rain's got to be one of the biggest songs of all time on rock radio and MTV and all that stuff.
You know, so
it was big.
More than just one record, right? I mean, obviously Appetite is so huge that nothing, no matter how big anything else is, it will never eclipse. But you know, like Kevin said, you know, the album with Patience on it and stuff. I mean, that was relatively, even though it was sort of I think a bridge record, like, hey, the Illusions are taking forever, we need to put something out. It still had, you know, Patience on it, which is a pretty big hit.
That was big.
You know, it was big. And so anyway, yeah.
Do you guys like Patience? That's kind of a controversial one.
No, I think it's fine. Out of all the ones, you know, there's a lot I don't like, but I don't mind that track.
I remember the controversy of 1 in a Million. That was kind of
what was the controversy?
Oh, the controversy over Patience is just people either liking it or not. But 1 in a Million, it had some like, you know, he said some what do you want to say, off-center kind of racist stuff, and he was saying that he was portraying a character, though. You know, that wasn't really what he thought. So, but you know,
well, everything can be taken out of context. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, aren't there like a couple of versions of that album cover? You know, like in the original album, you know, the Lies record was like a newspaper, and there were certain articles, and I think the original one had some headline that was sort of controversial, and so they ended up redoing it. So there's later versions where 1 or 2 of the headlines are changed to something else, because the original headlines that were on there were, you know, considered to be inappropriate or something, and so it was changed.
Yeah,
I wouldn't doubt it. So.
They weren't too concerned with being inappropriate usually, unless, you know, I mean, look at the first the original Appetite cover, right? Yeah, they were just letting it all hang out. That guy should have done the cover for Use Your Illusion too. That same artist.
Yeah, Brendan Schneider's got an original of that still sealed.
Nice.
Yeah. Mine's not sealed, but there's one back there somewhere. Yeah,
in the archives,
in
Dave's archives,
Dave's mess back there.
In your mess.
I got a couple.
They're alphabetized. It just takes me a minute.
Yeah, I've never seen one with the original cover out in the wild. Not that I'm looking, but I would have noticed if I saw one. I went, oh yeah, there it is. I'll be damned. All right, let's wrap this dog up. I want to thank the panel tonight, Kevin, Dave. Cancel each other out. But anyway, we want to hear from you down below. What can you do with these records? What can you do with 1 and 2? Can you make a better album? If you can, list down below your track listing for the new Guns N' Roses. We'll just call it Illusion. Call it whatever you want, but yeah, we'd like to hear from you. Anything else you got, boys? Anything else happening?
Nothing? I don't think so. This was fun. Thanks, you guys. That was fun.
All right,
everybody. Kevin, nice meeting you, and Grant and Dave, nice seeing you guys again.
Nice seeing you guys. I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
It's awesome. All right. So anyway, if you'd like to be on these panels, we'd love to have you. We have a Patreon. Join us there. The shows go up there early. There's interaction. There's just crap up there. Damn it. You should join it if you want to support the channel. If you don't want to do that, we do have a Ko-fi. Buy us a pint or a cup of coffee. Would appreciate that. We have merch down below. I keep forgetting to mention that there's merch. There's a link down below for merch. We just appreciate everyone supporting the channel. And yeah, I think that'll do it for this show. We will see you on the next one. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that thumbs up. All right, everybody. We'll see you, gentlemen. Thanks.
Thanks, guys. See you
Okay,
later.
bye, guys.
Adios.